So yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Vigorously.
It's our work session, huh?
Doing damage.
Serious.
Doing damage, I know. Let's go around and identify ourselves, the recording machine.
Amy Domboski.
Tim Steele. Ernie Hall.
Bill Evans.
Pete Peterson.
Dick Training.
Overton Johnson. Kay Fire, CFO.
Tom Dale, Synergy Program Manager.
Anna Kratansky, Deputy CFO.
Oh, Amanda Mosley.
Okay. Well, this is on our SAP, and a little announcement for the body. I've appointed a subcommittee to work on this. It's comprised of Elby Gray Jackson as the chairman, Amy Dabrowski is on it, Jennifer Johnston is on it, and Pete Peterson is on it. I want this group to just work on making SAP go functional. Much like we've got your subcommittee, Mr. Evans working on the alcohol issue. We've got Ernie's working on all the things that go along with marijuana.
Working on
I
marijuana.
want to make sure we're successful in this SAP. And I think just having a special subcommittee, and Jennifer, I appointed you to it if you would serve on it there, because SAP is something that we've decided we're going to do as a town. We need to work on the tech to make sure it's viable and it works. So, Ms. Gray Jackson, it's your meeting, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Let's call the meeting to order. And before we start, we have an hour, right? Just a half an hour? Okay, well, let me just say this real briefly. To those who don't know, I was in Chicago last week at a National League of Cities Finance Committee meeting, and I took the opportunity to have a meeting with some SAP representatives. Tom Dale was one of them, and there were two others. And it was really a really good meeting. They talked to me through PowerPoint presentation about SAP and HANA, and also a little bit about Chronos and SAP's timekeeping module that we already own. And so I don't think that's going to you're going to do that today, but at our next meeting, the same presentation that I received, Tom is going to present to these, and I thought it was really, really good and really worthwhile. And one other quick comment. I thought that it would be a really good idea after meeting with Kate yesterday that our ad hoc committee on SAP review should meet right after the Budget and Finance Committee meeting on a monthly basis and meet on a monthly basis with the executive team, the administration executive SAP team. And we can talk a little bit more about that at a later date because of time. Thank you.
Today, members of the Assembly are going to be hearing from Tom Dale on the activities that they've been engaged in, which is identifying tasks that are going to occur over the next several months in the blueprint. So he has provided you with the results of their efforts over the last 45 days, which are to identify at a very detailed level all the tasks that are associated with completing the blueprint. And he's going to introduce you to that document, walk you through it. The chairman asked me to give him some feedback on HANA and Chronos, as Sig has proposed that we need a decision by July 1, and we are not in disagreement with him that we need a decision on those issues by July 1. So let Tom Dale go first. Please feel free to pepper him with questions so that I only have a couple minutes at the end. That would be great. Whatever you like to do. Okay, Tom?
Thank you for that, Kate. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I think everybody got a book that I had in the back. We'll get these posted electronically for anybody that's listening in over the phone. Don't be overwhelmed by the size of this because I actually only have one slide to talk to today and some other things we'll just talk about. I want to give you a sense, and the reason for the book, by the way, is I have sensed and completely appreciate and understand what may be the frustration or the just lack of visibility that we've been able to provide to this point of what the team's been doing. It's been, okay, well, you're planning to plan, and now you're preparing, and what does that mean? And there's really nothing tangible behind those statements. So I wanted to give you a little bit more depth to that today. In the SAP methodology for doing projects, the first step is this program or project preparation stage. We completed that stage of the project last month. And if you look in and you have the same slide on the inside cover of the books that we handed out. there should be a yellow tab in everybody's book, and if you turn to that, there's a long list of work products on the left-hand side here. And these were all of the different documents completed by the team and also working with the municipality, the functional steering committee, the executive steering committees, to get these things done. And as your auditor, Zig, reported out to the audit committee, all of these things were completed and we're through that part of the project. We are now on what we call business blueprint. And this exhibit we've used on the top here, we've used a number of times, but I want to start drilling down into more detail of that schedule and what that means. So there's 3 pieces to how we're doing blueprint here, and it's a little bit unique because we've got a lot of work that's been done in the past, and we're making every attempt to preserve the work that has been done and being able to leverage. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. So what that turns blueprint into is kind of a three-step process. So the first step is just getting a sense of what we call the as-built documentation. So what was developed over time, getting our hands on it. And in fact, although this exhibit shows that process starting at the beginning of June, we've really been working on that for quite a while in advance to this, because we've had some of our more senior folks doing the project prep work, but at the same time overseeing other consulting resources who are doing this documentation analysis. So as we move through June into July, we will continue to look at the documentation, and we're essentially doing a couple different things as part of this. Looking at it to make sure, is the quality of the documentation where we think it needs to be, and how does it match the configuration in the system that's currently constructed. And once we get through this process, then we'll move in what we call the 2B blueprint. So you have a gap analysis between where everything is at and documented at this point in time. And so what do we need to do in the remaining amount of blueprint time to get things to where they need to be to move into realization, which is SAP lingo for really to build the system. Part of the blueprinting process is to develop, so this is as highly compressed of a blueprint vision as I could give you. What the remainder of this book represents, and we're still finalizing some of the details in here. We're going to meet and do I think we probably have 3 or 4 hours scheduled with Kate next week to do a deep dive. There is a master program schedule for the Synergy program. At this point, we have about 6 different supporting project plans that tie into that are just associated with blueprint. So there is a as-built plan for finance and logistics, an as-built plan for human capital management, and an as-built plan for what we call the RISE-up objects, which are all the reports, forms, interfaces, that type of thing. And then you have another, and so I've only printed tasks associated with getting through those 3 as-built parts of the blueprint. There's also another 3, and I just decided to save a tree and stop printing, for the 2B. But all told, we've been talking about, well, the team's been doing planning. We've got about 4,000 tasks that are outlined that we're going to execute over the next 3.5 months to get us to the point where we're ready to build the system. So with that, that's an update on where we're at. We are grateful that the Assembly got us a space in sunshine. We're planning on moving there the week of the 15th and getting all that team in place and really starting to roll. But I'd be happy to take any questions.
Just if I understand this correctly, after you do the as-built documentation, you indicated to be a gap analysis, see what you have to do to do the 2B blueprint.
Yes.
So I would assume at this point, or until you get done with the as-built documentation, you won't know exactly the full scope of the 2B.
Absolutely correct. So the 2B planning is a little little, is less refined. 2B, we're pretty much, after next week, it's gonna be locked down. I mean, that's the plan. And, but 2B, until we know exactly what all the gaps are, you're right.
And it could extend then conceivably that time frame somewhat, if it's more work than you maybe foresee at this point.
Conceivably, but we will start realization on October 1st in either case, because there will be things that we can be doing. So if we bleed over a little bit, that's okay. It's still not going to impact the starting realization from my perspective.
We anticipate that HCM is going to take longer to do that, the 2B blueprint, but Philo, because it's further along in development, will take a lesser amount of time to do the 2B blueprint, because a lot of it was configured in a way that SAP found to be appropriate. So we're cautioned against starting development before you have substantial modules complete the blueprint. We won't do that. We wouldn't pass through the quality date check if we did that. So this is all based on estimates and judgments of things that we can't really see right now.
What decisions do we have to make before 1 July? Keep in mind, we've got a change in administration, a change in philosophy. So, Kate, what do we have to do to tell you guys by 1 July? Because Zig was telling us these decisions have to be made. From your
Okay.
perspective, what do we need to tell you?
So we better turn the light on then. If you're done with Mr. Dale, I can answer those questions for you. Okay, so, it's better if I draw what's happening. So first I'm gonna talk about the upgrade. Upgrade was,
And excuse me, Ms. Dyer, by the way, we do have an hour. We get together for an hour.
how exciting.
Sorry, Kate.
No worries, no worries. I'm sure I'm happy to answer questions and do whatever I can. So, we have a couple of different things that are going on. People are talking about, Kronos and SAP. And how do they work together and how do they overlap? They overlap in that both, they overlap in time evaluation. That's the rules. And they overlap somewhat in time collection. What SAP cannot do, so they both are able to do that. What SAP cannot do is it doesn't have the equipment to automatically, I think they call it hardware software interface. They don't have the swipe machines. Hardware software interface. So Kronos has a great strength in that it did away in industry with the old time clocks where you punch. They created a hardware software interface which allowed that swiping or electromagnetic pushing to capture that time. If the new administration determines that they want to move backwards or move sideways or otherwise and not have people clock in and clock out, that hardware becomes unnecessary, that hardware component. That's a policy change and that's a philosophy change that, is above my pay grade. If you make this decision, you will not get rid of Kronos for the entire city because Kronos replaced for the bus station the old punch in and punch out. And I understand from transit, they don't want to go back to punch in and punch out that way. So we will always use hardware, and if we can, we will because we already bought and paid for it, you'll always use Kronos for that. Right now, over at transit, it's a little complicated. They have something called teledriver. That's a scheduling. You're familiar with telestaff. Teledriver, people punch, and the data, the punching data, goes into Kronos. and then TeleDriver feeds PeopleSoft. Kronos does not feed PeopleSoft. That doesn't exist. So right now, there's a lot of manual interaction. If this guy punches and it was 5 minutes over his schedule, they have to manually put that data back there so that it goes into PeopleSoft properly. So we will be working, we have VAs all over the city now, capturing what everybody's doing with their time. So we will be proposing, and no matter what the philosophy changes are in terms of non-traditional punching staff, that we maintain this system and we keep going on that system. But we need to improve that system by putting a link here for PeopleSoft and probably reconfiguring some of this. This evaluation and assessment, we have PAs going throughout the city right now, contract PAs. We've got them at APD, we've got them at AFD, they're over at Transit, and they'll be moving through every department and agency, public works over the summer to gather the requirements to determine how we're going to build the rules or improve the rules in Kronos. So Zig was talking about a Kronos decision, I think, as of effective July 1. And I don't think you need to make a Kronos decision. Are you going to stop with the hardware software interface on July 1? And I would recommend to the mayor that if he does ultimately want to move away from that, from some other than the non-traditional punching staff, that he do it the day that SAP goes live on 1/17.
Can I interrupt real quickly?
Yes, okay.
So what's a BA?
I'm sorry, a BA is a business analyst.
Thank you.
So that's.
Right, remember, is that one contractor or that's a number of different consulting
All
companies?
sorts of consultants are out there working. We've been going through ITBs and to gather sufficient local resources. We talked about that at the last assembly meeting. So we have a team of contractors. Some of them are Peloton, some of them are REI, some of them are IT Alaska, which is a Pango Media joint venture. So we try to get those guys from our local market as much as possible. So Zig was talking about, are we going to swipe or are we not going to swipe, and we need to know it by July 1.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Train, you have a
Pete,
problem.
have you talked to Mayor-elect on his philosophy on hardware?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, he asked me to provide him with a recommendation as to what he should do. I've been doing the cost analysis associated with getting that recommendation together, and my recommendation to him is going to be that we need stability in Kronos. We cannot do payroll without Kronos through 1/17. So any change that he made would require a configuration change at this moment, and we're going to recommend that he just remain stable for the short term. But that we will do time evaluation and time collection in the majority of that in SAP, and will not recommend to him that we use Kronos for that, but that we maintain Kronos for those.
No, we did buy the
traditional-
SAP module, didn't we? Did we?
I'm sorry, sir.
Did we buy the SAP module?
We own it.
Okay. And other towns like San Diego use it successfully, I understand.
It's never, through the chair, Mr. Chairman, it's not easy to, yes, they do use it, and you have to very carefully configure it like you would with any system.
Thank you.
And you will be doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Train. Mr. Steele, you were next. Would you like to-
Yeah, I did. I was going to go back basically with regards to the rented space. Or what about furniture and equipment and so on and so forth? Is that all?
Through the chair, Mr. Steele, we're using a lot of equipment from the state. The state has a very large warehouse where they put all their equipment, and they are allowing us to go over there and cherry pick through it. So as much as possible, we're not going to buy anything. We are renting copiers and things that you just can't get people to give you. But the furniture, we are getting from the state or from excess in our own offices.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was a question that Zig had asked us to make a decision by July 1. I will provide the incoming administration, and I did just talk to our mayor, existing mayor, about this. So that I will give a written recommendation through the mayor to the incoming mayor, probably next week on that one. So that's one decision that Zig thought that we needed to make by dial one. The next one is, are you going to do SQL database or a HANA database when you upgrade? So you're probably familiar with hearing about Oracle, right? Oracle's got its own database that it runs Oracle financials on. You can also run Oracle on a Microsoft database, and you can probably run it on a Linux database. So those are the databases on which your application software runs. So it's like having Microsoft XP, which is the platform, and then Microsoft Office 2013. That's the application. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the underlying database or structure that your system is operating on. When we found out we are operating, we are a Microsoft house, what you would call a Microsoft house. Those are our standards. We have in here, in MOA, we have several different database structures, but we try to drive to one database structure, and that is Microsoft. We do have Oracle databases in-house and other databases, and we also still have the mainframe. So we're not solely what we call SQL. I call it Swirl, but thoughtful people call it SQL. It's a database structure. SQL Server is what it's called. SAP has its own database called HANA. So it's a different database. It was conceived so that it's tries to make the database structure more efficient. And it has succeeded in making a more efficient database structure. And it has something called in-memory. So every single one of you that has an iPad, you open it up and ping, it opens, right? You don't have to wait like you do on your computer for it to start. And you can save things because it's got in-memory capability. HANA has in-memory capability. That means that you can post a journal entry and immediately run a report and see what it does. Okay? On SQL, or right now on PeopleSoft, if you post a journal entry, you won't get it very likely till tomorrow because processes have to run. So in-memory is, in terms of functionality, reporting, what they call analytics, which is a kind of a weird term, but if you, on a day-to-day basis, as you query, you're querying the real-time database. That's what HANA, that's its benefit. That's what SAP is selling as the benefit of HANA. And the database structure is actually different. So we're a Microsoft house. So when we looked at the upgrade, we planned out an upgrade based on this because that's what we knew. And that timeline is about 9 months. This is internal resources plus consultancies. When in February, when SAP was up here, they said, look, we can do you on HANA database in the cloud and it would take us, 6 months to do the same work that it would take you 9 months to do, because we can upgrade you in the cloud. So that time period was attractive because if it's a lower amount of time, then we can get going on development right away. So I study this and I think about it a lot. So I have a tendency to run ahead of any questions. Do you have questions so far?
Mr. Trainee was next, and then Ms. Johnston.
So where are we at right now at this moment in time? SQL or HANA?
The system is running on SQL, and we're going to recommend to you that we move to HANA.
And that decision to go to HANA has to be made by when?
We are going to bring that decision to you on the 9th, I believe it's the 19th of June, and we're going to start ask you for permission to start acquiring things on the 23rd, June 23rd. And then we'll make another secondary on the 14th. So the decision, are we going to do HANA or are we going to do SQL Server, has to be made this month, and we are gathering our resources and doing a study. We had Gartner come in and help us make this evaluation because we spent a lot of time on that. The infrastructure committee came up with a recommendation from HANA, but we wanted to gate check that decision against Gartner. So Gartner's up here on the contract that you approved, and they are giving us an evaluation of what are the benefits and detriments associated with that.
I think Mr. Attorney was done.
So with the Gartner contract, they're not going to sort of say one or the other, they're just giving an evaluation, they're comparing to a matrix.
Their responsibility is to give us a recommendation.
Okay, and the timeline for their recommendation is going to be,
They're coming with a draft recommendation to us on the 16th, I believe. And then they're going to give you a formal presentation, I think, early in July. So we're going to have them give you a formal presentation before we make a request to you on the 14th.
and then, and in your cost analysis, you're looking at the burn rate between the 6 and 9 months, and you're also looking at what's the annualized cost of the two programs.
Yeah, there's, so we tried to boil it down. We boiled it down to which system provides the best stability for the MOA going forward. In all future development, SAP is heading toward HANA. So we tried to look beyond the fancy analytics. Wow, you can post a journal entry and you can get a report immediately. That's a user benefit, but at what cost? So that wasn't a sufficient amount of justification for us to switch databases. But the long-term plan for SAP is to put more on HANA and to also, all future application development will be on HANA. So you may know this already, but 2020, you have purchased something called ECC 6.0. That's the application, that's your Microsoft Office 2013. In December of 2020, SAP has said, we're no longer going to support this. We're going to have a new piece of software out that you're going to upgrade to. And that will be a HANA, very likely a HANA system. So what we're trying to say is, okay, we're in the middle of this big effort. Ultimately, the city is going to be on HANA if it's going to stay on SAP for 20 years. So is it, are we getting more bang for the buck moving to HANA today? Now, you're going to have a full presentation of HANA versus SQL, and the presentation, SAP is coming up to talk to you. Because this is a significant decision which has occupied us for about 8 weeks. It's not, we don't move to it lightly, we don't make a recommendation lightly. There's a lot of factors to consider. So in answer to your question, we asked them to look at what's best just in terms of the databases for Anchorage. Is it better to stay on SQL? Stability, we know what it is, doesn't do in memory, but we're on it now. Or is it better to go HANA? Which one do you think it is better for us? So that's what they're looking at. And they will consider, when you get into the cost question, we're going to be able to do HANA in the cloud. Then you start talking about HANA in the cloud to upgrade. And then where are you going to do it when you pull it back down? And when you pull it back down, you have the option of bringing it in-house, bringing it to a local cloud, or staying back on the cloud. These factors are all the same between SQL and HANA. We could outsource the database maintenance on a Microsoft database or on a HANA database. It doesn't matter.
So basically, the consultants are looking at it just for the basis of the database management. They're looking at it without, because you're going to, or somebody's going to make the decision due to cost, and due to, basically cost. That's going to be that's not part of the consultants.
We're not, because it's really, you can do both. You can keep it in-house. You can outsource it. You can bring it to a local cloud. And you can bring it to a hosted cloud. Hosted clouds in the lower 48.
So you don't need
whether
to-
it's SQL or HANA.
So So you don't need to, at this point, decide what kind of redundancy you need or what kind of, that's all. You're just looking
I'm
at,
just trying to get past this gate.
and you didn't feel you had the in-house ability to judge that in-house gate.
There's a lot of considerations that you have to think about when you look at this. So the in-house people spent about 7 weeks on this in the infrastructure committee meetings, but I didn't feel comfortable just relying on their expert. What if they're just thinking that HANA's sexy, right? HANA's cool and we get in memory. You know, we needed someone like Gartner who's independent third party to come in and take a look. They may come back and say we're on SQL. I don't know what they're going to say. I've asked them just to be truthful to themselves.
So at this point, we're not discussing burn rate, and we're not discussing cost of programming, because the cost of having a HANA in the cloud.
No, because we don't have to do it that way. The HANA in the cloud, the upgrade, I'm going to recommend if you go HANA, you upgrade in the cloud because it's faster. But whether we stay in the cloud or whether we come back home after we're done upgrading is a decision that will come down the path. And I can give you a better presentation of what these decisions look like.
Anything else, Ms. Johnson? Thank you. Mr. Steele, was that?
Yeah, mine was a similar question in terms of the 2020 date, 5 years down the road here.
Yep.
Are we making, are the decisions we're making, you say you're probably going to recommend to go into HANA, how are they impacted by the fact that, are we not going to be able to go in the cloud initially, or what is the significance of the 2020
This is when,
cost?
so Office comes out with a new model every 4 or 5 years, Office
Yeah.
2013 to 17. That's what's going to happen with ECC 6. Generally, the software companies put out a period, like PeopleSoft came out of support for the 1998 version that we're on in, I think, 2003 or 2004, I can't remember. So they just stopped supporting it. That means you don't get fixes and patches, they just stop. So SAP has said in 2020, we're not going to support this anymore. So if you want to stay under support, you got to move to what's next. And what's next, SAP is saying, that's what we asked Gartner, are they telling the truth or not? But what's next, they say, is going to run on a HANA database. We're going to force everybody to go to a HANA database ultimately.
How widespread is HANA?
HANA's got 5,000 customers on it right now.
So it's going to be around a while? I mean,
Well, it's going to be around as long as SAP is going to be around.
Yeah.
But, that's part of the thing, that's a good question to ask Gartner.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that we didn't have sufficient comfort that we had all those answers.
I
no
don't want
matter
to buy
how much
into
we-
something in the short term that's going to cost us in the long necessarily. So, anyway.
Any other questions before we continue?
So this is just a brief overview. There's what's going on at Tom Dale's level, and then there's what's going on everywhere else. And there is no peaceful day on SAP. You don't have a day where you're not thinking about SAP or Kronos or what's the best thing for the Muni. No peaceful days. So in the research that we've done recently, we talked about the upgrade. So the upgrade. So one of the things that Dick wants us to do and we want to do is make a decision on the upgrade. So we are on Service Pack, calling EGP, I think, 5.0 that we bought in 2011. So it's now at 7.0, which came out in 2013. So I was gearing the entire effort of us to be on 7.0. So I made our plans and did everything based on that. HANA, or SAP, is now going to release 8.0 in January, probably, of 2016. So our strategy in working with you is said, we gotta come off this. This is no good, we can't go live on 2011 software. We have to be on the most current version. So our project plans and everything are built on this because it's already been out for a long time. And we were behind in adopting it. Well, if they come out with this and we haven't addressed it, when I go, I leave you in the same place that you were before.
I have a
Because
quick
you-
question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I didn't mean to cut you off, but, okay. So, the upgrade, is it a full cost upgrade?
It's you get the software, what they call for free, because you pay the maintenance, but it's a cost associated with taking all the data and moving it and putting it into a new place and configuring it. So there is no major upgrade that is free to you. The software, they give you the software, but it's gonna cost you, I think I budgeted 3.5 million to do this upgrade right here. And you've seen that in the numbers that I gave you. And I told you how I came to that number. It cost 2.5 million to upgrade PeopleSoft, and I added $1 million in 2003. And that's the best I knew at the time, it's just an estimate.
So if I could follow up, if we go with the upgrade that's coming out January 1st, to me, which makes sense, then what's that cost next year?
Well, what we're doing right now is we're telling SAP, you're not gonna leave us in this situation. We're not gonna pay you to upgrade us, and then you're leaving us on 7.0, which is 2013 software. So while we have contracts pending, I wrote to them and said, we're not doing it until you solve this problem for us. So solve this problem, because we are not going to go live 1/17 and be a year behind already, and by 1/18 need to go up and upgrade again. It's just not gonna happen.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is, SAP, those negotiations are ongoing. They're coming up next week. I'm meeting with them and the team all day on Thursday to hash out that negotiation of how they're going to resolve this problem. I feel like SAP should have told us about this and all the negotiations we're doing on 7.0. And it was just happened through research that we were doing that we found out that they're gonna drop 8.0 on us. So I was a little disconcerted with SAP, but, I mean,
I don't want to be a teacher.
Just curious, I mean, does SAP generally release new software every 2 or 3 years? Is that the history?
through the chair, they used to release enhancement packs every year through stability of the software. And then in 2000, so they released in 2011, and then they released in 2013, and now they're releasing in 2015. So the period of time with the maturity of the software has gotten broader. So you're likely to say, well, geez, Kate, is it gonna cost me $3.5 million to upgrade to 9.0? So there are long-term contracts that we are considering with SAP where they will embody those upgrades and fixes and patches in their contract. And those are not things you have to worry about today, but we will be negotiating those contracts and working with you and talking to you about how are you gonna maintain the system. Part of the request from the incoming mayor was to give him a sense of what the total cost of ownership of SAP will be after we go live. We've been very focused on what's the cost of it to go live. And Mr. Steele asked again the other day, are we gonna have consultants on board? So I'm working with Gartner now that we have that approved contract, and they're gonna give us some sense of ranges. And it's likely to be something between 6 or 8 or 10 or 12% of your total capital costs are likely to be your ongoing costs. So I'll be presenting that to you as soon as I finish my analysis.
Okay, well, last one, when I met with Tom in Chicago and a couple others, one of the questions that I asked Tom was if he could give us some real clear dollar figures, because that's one of the things that very, very important to us as a body that appropriates money. You know, we had that conversation, and we were gonna work on that. And when I talked to Ms. Guard yesterday, I asked her when we got costs, that I wanted the costs to include labor, not just for general government, but for utilities also. Because it's a cost, it's a real cost.
Madam Chair, do you mean when we bring you forward, like, for example, the upgrade, do you want to know what the costs of the personnel associated with doing that upgrade are going to be for internal costs for MLA?
I want to see labor costs throughout, because in the beginning, when we got numbers, I made that request. And every meeting we had after that, whenever we got additional numbers, the MLA labor costs were included, and all of a sudden, it stopped.
Okay.
I would like to see that continue. Thank you. Are you both done with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there are no other questions?
I know it was done, I just don't remember. I forgot my pen, so I didn't write it down. The whole, thank you, like everybody's wrong. The whole discussion about HANA versus SQL, you said we're gonna get a depth presentation on that. When is that going to be? Do we have it scheduled?
Yes, ma'am, through the chair, we would have Gartner give you that presentation before we asked you to approve any contracts to do anything like move from SQL to HANA. So I don't have a fixed date right now, but it will be in early July, because we anticipate bringing forward requests to you to keep our timeline on July 14th. So on the 19th of June, you will receive a briefing on HANA from SAP. We asked to schedule that meeting. And then Gartner will give us our draft on the 16th, and then Gartner, they're like old fogies, they want like time to make sure that it's all right before they bring it to you. So they said 8-week total period
I
for
can't help but
evaluation.
smile, Kate, but I love how you present, because you're just so to the point. I love it. No, I appreciate that. I wanted, as I'm thinking about HANA and SQL, I was doing a little online research while you were talking, because I've never heard of HANA outside of this project.
Right.
It's the first time I had experienced it. And I'm looking at that, obviously, compared to what Oracle's project is, and then I'm thinking about the future. And, if in fact SAP doesn't work out and we have to switch to something else,
Yes.
what's our exit cost? What's our opportunity to do that? I've been cynical. I remain to be cynical. But I think through that, those are the big questions that come up that you can satisfy me and my concerns. So I hope that's covered. My understanding is HANA's a relatively, I want to say immature compared to Oracle's product
Yes,
that's
that's a
announced.
true statement. It is.
So, it concerns me that we're going to something that's still new, because what happens with new software, there's always patches, or new versions. So it's a big decision, and it's one, I don't think that's gonna, no matter if we decide to go to it, I think there's going to be books in the road. I mean, there again, see, I'm being cynical, and I'm really an optimist, but hopefully that's on your radar so you can address those at that meeting.
Question.
Thank you, Mr. Bosky. When I met with him in Chicago, I asked pretty much the same question in terms, because I'd never heard of HANA either. I had no idea what HANA was. I like the way it sounds, but that's about it. And then Tom told me that it's been around for 3 years?
3 years.
Okay, which is still new, but I just gotta mention that. Ms. Johnston?
As far as the HANA decision, is that going to meld well as far as your timeline, developing a blueprint? I mean, nothing worse than hurry up and wait.
So, if I may, through the chair, the decision, that there are implications to all of these decisions on the schedule. Going to HANA and executing the upgrade in the cloud is the quickest path, so it poses the least risk on the overall timeline. Other decisions have longer timelines associated with them.
And then I'm just asking on your basic day-to-day work that's being accomplished right now, as you do your as-built, is this all going to work? Are there people twiddling their thumbs right now? Are they?
Absolutely not.
Are they able to complete tasks, so that they're not holding anything up?
The dependency of these decisions starts to show itself when you go into realization at the beginning of October. People can be doing, we're doing work on the blueprint. I mean, this decision is not holding any of that up right now.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So since we have SAP and HANA is an SAP product, is it easier for them to work with HANA since it's their product versus staying with the store with the company?
Through the chair, the reason that we looked at HANA initially, the only reason we considered HANA at all was because HANA, you could go into the cloud, you could go up wherever that cloud is, and you could get the upgrade done. So we could get the upgrade done on an accelerated schedule if we moved to HANA. So that was the first door that opened for us, is that we were looking at a 9-month timeline, doing it ourselves with consultants, and then an accelerated timeline, doing it by using HANA in the cloud. It also was a benefit because I saw that it pulled SAP in more, put more skin in the game. Right now, they've sold us the software, they sold us a project manager, but do they, are they really in? And so that was another benefit that I saw. So that's why the doors opened, is because the speed of the upgrade, and then you could start development and get going.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Evans?
And you may have just answered my question, Dave, I'm not sure. And we, at one point, if I remember correctly the dates, we were set to go live with Philo on January 1st. 17th. And it was around mid-November when sort of all the train came off the tracks pretty much completely. Which means we were like 6 weeks to 8 weeks out from a theoretical go-live date. Which I would think means that at that point, in all this analysis, the database decision, the SQL, had already been at least made or not even considered, and we were going to go live with SQL. And then I guess the way you may have answered the question, is the sole reason now that there's a debate about which database to use because of the time constraint, because it just was quicker?
Through the chair, Mr. Evans, at the time that we were going to go live in January 1 of 2015, we did not consider, we were going to upgrade, go live and then upgrade. So what we did is we stopped, we said we're going to upgrade before we go live and get our software current. And that is what the change was.
So previously we didn't have to consider it.
Right, because you were on 2011 software after you upgraded, after you went live, you would have had to upgrade, which would have introduced instability into your application.
Thank you, David. Any other questions?
I just have a few, Madam Chair, I just have a few items to go over. It won't take a minute. I believe that you all hopefully got a notification that we're hiring interns. If you have any college interns that you know about, if you could please let me have their resumes. We're not overly picky. We want people who are going to show up and learn something. We will teach them Microsoft projects. We'll teach them Microsoft Visio. We'll give the first couple weeks they get to be learning all these skills, and they'll get some certificates, and that's kind of cool. And then they're going to be working with the project managers like Tom. So they actually will have real work to do, and it's going to be kind of exciting. So that's the first one.
How much you paying them? How much you paying?
1823. They don't get any benefits or anything. They just come in as temporary employees. But, ITV, Ms. Domowski mentioned that she wants more competition. We met with local vendors today. We are putting out an ITV this afternoon or Monday for probably 30 resources that are going to go on the project.
I did find the card of that company I was talking about.
Okay.
I'll get it. I'll screenshot it and text it to you later.
That's just fine. Apartments, Mr. Steele was mentioning, can't you put these people in apartments? We did have an ITV for hotel rooms, nobody responded. That freed us up to immediately go look for apartments. We are have secured apartments for the consultants. We're putting them in two consultants to a room for the regular consultants, the senior project managers. They're kind of, you don't want to screw with them. So they get their own room. So we are trying to find the one bedrooms. There's only 3 or 4 of those guys. But the apartments are about $4,300 or $4,000 a month, which is much cheaper for 2 than what we're paying right now. So we're gonna start slamming people in there on the 7th when they come back. So we did take your advice on that. Once in a while we do. And,
Excuse me, did the law respond in our case? The
No.
law?
We received no response at all from our request. The law?
Yes,
The law.
that's right, walking distance to the office, and they have efficiencies.
Now Tammy Real Estate Services has been working with us, but we're still trying to find those one bedrooms, so that would be good for them. There's Tammy Final and Cross, okay. That